Hello, I'm Candace Thille. I'm the director of the Open Learning Initiative at Carnegie Mellon University. One of the greatest outcomes of the Open Educational Resources Program that's largely been supported by the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation is it enacted a cultural shift, or in mindset. That mindset was that high-quality post-secondary education should only be available to a privileged few. The Open Educational Resources movement changed that idea, and underlying that is the idea that such knowledge is a public good and should be openly and freely available to everyone. So that was the first step in the Open Educational Resources movement, and that radical idea has really begun to take hold as more and more faculty and more institutions are making the content that supports their traditional instruction openly and freely available. But that's just the first step. The next step in the movement is to really look at how we can use open educational resources to actually improve teaching and learning for a much larger population and a much more diverse population. So how's that going to happen? Well, my chapter in the book, Opening Education, the title of the chapter is Building Open Learning as a Community-Based Research Activity. And that title came from a quote from a Nobel laureate at Carnegie Mellon, Herb Simon, when he said, "True improvement in post-secondary education will require converting teaching from a solo sport to a community-based research activity." And the Open Education Resources movement has the potential to be the ground for that community-based research activity. Well, how, you might ask? Well, first, who's involved in this community-based research activity? It would be traditional learning scientists, cognitive scientists, teachers, and most importantly, learners. All coming together with the goal of figuring out and really understanding how one uses the technology to create effective learning environments, and also studying how people learn. So what does the technology have to do with this? Well, as John Seeley Brown said in the foreword of the book, the technology is actually what is enabling the open educational resources idea to become a reality. And I would posit that in addition to the ways that John was talking about, one of the most powerful features of the technology is that it allows us to embed assessment into every instructional activity. And we can gather data from that assessment and use that data to drive 4 very powerful feedback loops. The first feedback loop, of course, is to the learner, because we know from a lot of learning science research that learners learn best and most effectively when they get timely and targeted feedback in the context of trying to solve a problem. So, what most of us learned is we did homework, we turned it in, a week later maybe we got it back from our instructor with some kind of comment and feedback. But a week later, we're looking at it, we don't even remember what we were thinking or why we wrote what we wrote. So at that point in time, with that kind of delay, the feedback isn't as supportive as it is if when you're sitting there struggling with it, you have immediate constructive feedback to support you. So that's one kind of feedback loop. The second feedback loop is obviously to the instructor. Once we're collecting this data, we can give that data in a meaningful way to the instructor so they can use their very precious instructional time with their students to actually target what their students need to understand, as opposed to just sort of scattershot hoping that they get what the instructor's saying. The third feedback loop is feedback to the OER designer. Because as we have more and more people working through these environments, seeing how they're using it, what they're learning, we can use that data to refine the environment and make it progressively better for everyone. And the fourth feedback loop is to the learning science researchers, on whose theories the design of the environment was originally based. They can see how it's actually used in practice and use that to refine our understanding of human learning. So that's how this incredibly exciting research project can be engaged. And what it takes is, for everyone, learners, teachers, learning scientists, anyone who really cares about human learning and about making that such knowledge openly available to participate. So I encourage you to educate yourself about what's going on in opening up education and become part of this very exciting community.